Greetings and salutations. This is Abdelhadi with The Bitter Truth, where we may not have all the answers, but we're going to ask an awful lot of questions. You can also support the show and help us out at the bittertruth.info, I-N-F-O. And there we have a Patreon link you can sign up for if you're interested and buy some fabulous swag to make your life better. We have T-shirts and everything else that are pretty groovy, I think. So today, I'm very excited to have Delilah Barrios on the show. She's running for governor under the Green Party ticket. And, they've been a little controversial as of late. So, we'll jump into that as well. But Delilah, how are you?
Hi, Abe. I'm good. How are you doing?
I'm good. Just, I'm not exactly happy and peppy and bursting with love today, but otherwise, I could be worse.
Who could blame you? No worries.
Yeah, right. Hey, so you're running for governor under the Greens.
Yes.
And candidly speaking, what kind of support are you getting here in Texas from the party?
From the state party?
Mm-hmm.
I think a good term would be anemic. We're not even very well organized, to be really honest with you. And so
Sure.
it's been such a struggle. And so I've just been like, my main way of trying to reach people has just been through the indie circuit. I'm like, please, you know what I mean? Like, you can have me on and we can talk. And I kind of like got my way onto Howie Hawkins' podcast, but that's just because I was ambitious.
Right.
So it's really, I think most of us third party people are not very well supported, especially Greens, on the lower half of the country. People in Maine might have a little bit more support. People in New York might have a little bit more organization, than us in Texas.
Yeah. I've had Howie on the show a few times. When you say you had to be ambitious and get on his podcast, was he resistant at first, or what? How'd that go?
No, it wasn't anybody within the Green Party that got me onto a show. It's
okay.
Never, you know what I'm saying? It's you always got to outsource before you get in. But he's a great person. I happily voted for him, and I had a good conversation with him,
Yeah.
We definitely need more help and support though, all around. Right. We don't even have ballot access in all the 50 states.
Yeah, that kind of dropped off during the last race, because I remember in 2016, you guys were like on 48 states or 49 states, right?
Yeah. And there's been a concentrated effort to get us kicked off of ballots all over. Mean, Julie Oliver even was part of a push to kick the Green Party off the ballot. And then we did a Medicare for All rally, and she came and spoke on that for a little bit. So it was just like, interesting.
Yeah, right.
She seemed nice. I don't know.
Well, they all seem nice. No, the devil doesn't come at you with horns and a tail, does he? Right? They're gonna come at you with a wiggle and a wink and a bottle of wine and some poetry, as my old pastor used to say. Right?
They're more cunning. So.
They're cunning. That's why he's the devil, right? It's just, and people think I'm being paranoid when I say things like that, but I mean it from the bottom of my little black heart. Well, let's jump into your platform. So, just to start off, because you just mentioned it, with Medicare for All in the state of Texas, that's something you want to get done.
Yeah.
I don't know if you're familiar. I just interviewed Dr. Joe Jarvis. He's a friend of the show. He's doing the American Health Security Project.
Yeah. I listened to some of that.
And so like with out-of-state income tax, I know there's a lot of things that, the state is able to budget their money for, but without a viable state income tax, how do you think we can pay for Medicare for All in Texas?
Oh, yeah. If you just look at the subsidies that go to the oil and gas industry, there's a big chunk of money going to these systems that don't help most people anymore. So, that would be my top method, because people are worried about getting an individual income tax in Texas, and I'm not trying to go that direction. I don't think that's going to be helpful. I think there's plenty of money that is not being spent properly.
Well, if we have money, if we have money to subsidize big oil, then we could just chop that like in half, right?
We could certainly make sure everybody has healthcare in the state. We're the most underinsured state, and I work in healthcare, and it's really hard to hear patients, they're just so worried about the bill. People don't want to go to the ER. People don't want to get treatment. It's just like this cycle of abuse from our health industry,
Yeah. No, the industry's miserable. I'm just getting off of this health share that I've been on for about 2 years. And, on paper, it looks great. You've got this incredibly low deductible. And, if I get sick for $1 million, my deductible $750, but just even for minor things like getting a physical, they let the bill go forever, and then you got to pay it, and then you send it to them. I mean, I've been 6 months to a year on getting reimbursed on things that I've, paid into, and you're kind of going okay, so you guys really aren't any better than crappy ass health insurance, and they deny things too. That's just the nature of the beast, right?
Right, because it's a corporate model.
Yeah.
And it's a for-profit model. And so, you've got people who have no medical background telling you what kind of medical decisions you are allowed to make for yourself as an individual.
Right.
And that's frustrating for everybody that I know.
Right.
It's just something, everybody's ready for healthcare reform. It needs to happen.
Well, listen, I'm going to jump into a hot potato here for a second, but let me ask you, like, just say, for example, you do make it and you win, because you're going to run against Beto O'Rourke, Robert Francis O'Rourke. You're going to run against Governor Hot Wheels. You're going to run against Greg Abbott. I like to call him Governor Hot Wheels because I don't like him. And
I understand. A lot of people call him that, and I just bite my tongue.
Well, you got to be nice. You're running for office, right? I don't. I'm just a jerk with a radio show or a podcast. So it's just like.
I get it.
But
yeah, I mean, he's not, I mean, the weird thing is I meet people who are like, I actually really like Greg Abbott. And I'm like, why?
They
understand.
Can't, yeah, they can't.
And it's never really anything that makes sense. So.
Well, they can't, he's in their party, and that's it. And then people are going to vote for Beto O'Rourke, and, Beto's great. Well, I mean, he voted for banking deregulation 3 times, twice under Trump. Right. He's voted for every defense appropriation. When he was a congressman, he wasn't shy about any of that. Right. I'm not being paranoid. You just go to votesmart.org or Open Secrets. It's there for you to see.
No. Oh, yeah. I don't know why people think he's so progressive at all. And that term, in fact, has just completely lost its value. It doesn't mean anything anymore.
What, the progressive?
Yeah.
Oh, yeah. No, it doesn't mean anything anymore. You have to flat out say, you are left of. You can't just say you're progressive anymore, because the Progressive Caucus in Congress is like, 100 people, and they're useless. Yeah, it's about like 95 people, and they're useless. Hakeem Jeffries was the president of the leader of the caucus before, and that guy's completely bought and sold by big insurance. I mean, so it's like, how are they progressive, right? But my question was going to be, since if, like, say you win, you're obviously not going to come in with a mandate. You're still going to deal with a Republican majority legislature, right?
Yeah.
How do you get rid of SB 8?
SB 8.
What are your the abortion law?
Oh my God. Yeah. No. So first of all, Roe v. Wade and every other aggression against people's medical choices is always in violation of patients' privacy and provider privacy. And so that's the way to undo all of this, is to make sure that you as a patient have full right and full privacy over your own healthcare. And I think with that alone, we could get rid of some of the anti-trans legislation as well. And then I don't even think people understand what a 6-week or 10-week fetus actually looks like, and they make this about like pro-life, and it's not about pro-life. Mm-hmm. It's about lack of choices. It's about poverty. It's about aggression against people of color specifically. And
sure.
All of so this is a trend, right? We're seeing it in Texas. We're seeing it in Alabama. We're seeing it in Mississippi. Mm-hmm. And the pro-life crowd, the conservative crowd is going against just basically autonomy and that right as a patient to have privacy. So I think one of the best ways to legally get it done is just have better protections for patients, and if we had Medicare for all in Texas, we could write that into the legislation to make sure that everybody has the choices that they need.
Right, but how would you repeal SB 8? It's already a law now since September. So how would you go about repealing that?
However necessary, because it's bullshit and it shouldn't stand.
Right.
So I mean, that's just nothing. However, it needed to be done.
Right. I mean, but you're gonna be facing a Republican majority legislature where that's not going to change for quite a while.
And that is true, but even they have their limitations, and I'm stubborn. So,
okay. All right. Okay. Well,
and I'm not trying to make friends with the lobbyists. I'm not trying to make friends with the insurance companies.
Yeah, no,
that's the only benefit.
Yeah, no, but that's not really my question. I mean, like what kind of a strategy would you employ to repeal that law? Because it's not an executive order. That is, it's a state law now. So how can we get rid of it? And it passed through the Supreme Court too. So how could we get rid of it?
Well, I think there's some leeway with the Constitution, the state Constitution. We can make amendments there.
Okay.
I think that's one strategy that would make sense,
Right.
And then obviously we would have to have a whole legal team of people to go against this.
Right.
But it's just insane living here, especially being a woman. Like, I have daughters too. Just understanding that a provider could be thrown in jail or fined, you know what I mean, just for helping somebody get healthcare just feels so apocalyptic.
Yeah, that's right.
I don't think a lot of people around the country really understand what it's like to live with that weight, that you don't have rights. You don't have basic human rights living in the state as a woman.
Right. Well, and then let me ask you something. So I know you're all about marriage equality. Now, I'm ignorant. I didn't know that we had laws on the books in Texas that screw with that. I mean, I know DOMA was repealed in 2015. So what kind of obstacles are gay and trans people in Texas looking at as far as their rights are concerned? Because as far as I understood, I thought that they could just pretty much do what they wanted in Texas. Is that not true?
Yeah, and people do not get married in Texas. Same-sex couples do not get married in the state. They go elsewhere to get that done. And then even if they have their marriage license from another state, they still have to deal with, again, healthcare. Mm-hmm. So that's probably one of the only benefits to being married in this country, is that you can add your spouse to your insurance plan and then they're covered, and so they don't. So that changes the dynamic of how they plan their families. It changes, everything for them. So we have to work on that so that people have actual rights,
Sure.
It's a big deal. I mean, everybody is worried about, and I know people personally who've struggled to make sure that their partners are insured, and
sure.
It's an
employer,
and then trans, what's that?
Real quick, right? Not to interrupt you, but so an employer in Texas can deny a same-sex couple coverage?
An employer?
Yeah.
No, it's not. So everybody gets different kinds of insurance. We were just talking about this. So it's not all of it's employer based. So if you go private route, sometimes it's easier that way. But yeah, sometimes, yes, some employers can deny coverage. And it's kind of depending on where you work, obviously.
Sure.
There's some very, very pro corporate institutions in Texas. And they'll write it in their packets. You know what I mean? Like, you have to verify you're married through this, and that. And then there's just all these different ways to make it harder for people to take care of their loved ones. So I mean, it's still a fairly bigoted state, unfortunately.
Yeah, no, I thought that was done when they repealed DOMA. I thought that was just like, all right, cool, you guys can do whatever you want to do. It's not a big deal. And you're about to say you're about to say trans rights. What's that like in Texas now?
Oh, yeah. Well, there's just, every time they say the words bathroom bill, I'm worried about some kids.
Wait, say that again. Say the words.
Anytime anybody brings up the word like bathroom bill, or we're talking about making sure that it's fair for sports, we can't have boys playing in girls' sports. Like, it's never really about that. It usually goes back to preventing people from having access to like things that they potentially need for their healthcare, like hormone treatment and things like that.
Sure. Well, I mean, to be candid, I'm totally cool with trans rights, but I don't think boys should be trans. I don't think people transitioning should be competing against girls. It's just not.
Well, sure. But I mean, if I was that person's parent, I'd be like, I don't care what you think.
Yeah, well, that's great. But that's where I draw the line. I'm like, no, in this life, you make decisions, you have consequences, you have rewards. And you can't take a 15-year-old boy with testosterone and musculature and in transitioning and then have him compete against girls and call that, fair.
And again, it's never really about that.
No, I know what they're trying to do. I understand what they're trying to do on all the other areas, but where it comes to
the legal aspect.
Yeah, that's where I didn't know we had those issues, except for the bathroom bill and crap like that. I pretty much thought people in Texas I've been here 7 years. I thought they were able to just kind of do their thing and just sort of be left alone. That's not the case here.
No,
Okay.
no, it isn't. 7 years is probably, I know people who come to Texas and they're like, I'm sorry, weed's not legal. What? And it's like, yeah, here's welcome to a certain corner of hell.
Right.
That's why they're always saying, comparing Texas to hell, because it's so hot. And we've got a bunch of racists and bigots trying to legislate people's bodies.
Right.
And make sure you don't get to have your say or freedoms or any rights or happiness. Well, it's just, we try to joke about it at work, but it's like,
I get you. Well, speaking of happiness, let's, jump into what you want to do with marijuana. I mean, why is it that Oklahoma, the redheaded stepchild of this area, has medical marijuana? We can't even get that. What is up with the fucking legislature in this state? I mean, it's like, and I've sat in on a few, I've sat in before and I've watched them. I mean, it's like any other state I've seen them do their thing. It's not different. They meet and they vote and they do their thing. Why can't we get medical marijuana at least passed in this state?
Yeah, I don't have any solid papers in front of me, but I would blame Big Ag for that in Texas.
Okay.
They don't want the competition. That's my guess. And then, because even sweet little old ladies that go to church aren't too worried about the devil's lettuce anymore,
Yeah.
So it's just, I think I would blame it on industry.
Well, so enlighten us here. So when you say Big Ag, what specifically about Big Ag would benefit from marijuana being illegal?
Yeah, then they don't have competition for price of land. They don't have competition. You know what I mean? Like all of our industries rely heavily on our natural resources, and so if they don't have to share those, you know what I mean?
Yeah.
I think it has less to do with any social stigmas, than it does about profits.
Right. Okay. All right. Well, I mean, so if you got in, how, what would you try to get done? I mean, how can we get that through on your desk to sign it? Who would you have to strong arm? What would you have to do to get the assembly and the state Senate to play ball with you?
Yeah, of course, there's the executive order position. Greg Abbott's famously taken advantage of that power. And then, I did have a lawyer for a short period of time kind of advising me on my campaign and
very cool,
helping me strategize. And she kept talking about the state constitution being like fail safe.
Right.
Obviously nothing's easy. You know what I'm saying? But
sure.
If somebody like me could be the governor of Texas, there's really no telling on what we could accomplish, because we would have very clear and loud support from the people about what our wants are and what our people's needs are.
Sure.
And it would be hard to oppose that, despite, what color is in the legislation or in the, it doesn't matter. You know what I mean? Because it's the people who can do the pressure and support. Part of the reason I think none of the politicians that are elected are talking about Medicare for all anymore is because they know they don't have to.
Right.
We're not talking about it as much, and I think a lot of people just felt brokenhearted after the last couple of elections, and the peak apathy levels for politics in general.
Yeah.
I'm sure you can relate.
Well, yeah. I mean, it's just a rig, isn't it? People love to tell me that I'm being paranoid. I'm kind of going, well, you explain the Electoral College or super delegates or gerrymandering to me and tell me it's not a rig.
Yeah, exactly.
It's like and especially at the upper levels in Congress and the presidency, it's always, no matter who wins, the oligarchs win. No matter who wins, Amazon wins, Wall Street wins. Mm-hmm. Goldman Sachs, basically it's the 10th floor versus the 14th floor of Goldman Sachs, right? It's like, the 14th floor happens to be Democrats and they're cool with, pro-choice. And then the 10th floor, a bunch of Republicans, and they don't like choice. And that's it. Everything else is right along the line of Goldman Sachs and what they want. So I think people are just burned out, right? I mean, it's like when you've been kind of going around. I know you have a job and everything, but you've been going around talking to people. What's your take on what they're saying? What are they saying to you?
And a lot of people are, like they're shell shocked, right? Like we just got out of this. We haven't even gotten out of the pandemic, but everybody says like, oh, it's, we're on the tail end of COVID. And I'm just like, And I don't want to say yes or no, you know what I mean? Because like these people, a lot of them just are overwhelmed. They're
Yeah.
overwhelmed. They have a lot of fear. They've seen some things. It's been hard,
Yeah.
and
Yeah.
they don't have a very high positive outlooks for the future. They're a little down about things. Obviously there's a generational gap. I think younger people have a little bit more energy, a little bit more, fire.
Yeah. Yeah.
They're willing to get out there. And then, most people are just like, I'm just trying to survive, like.
Yeah. Well, kind of back to marijuana for a second, not like I'm obsessed, but if you were to get into office and you sign an executive order legalizing pot, you think that would fire up other independents to run for legislature, for example?
I sure as hell would hope so.
Do you know what I mean? Like, and then you'd have more support where you can actually get that into law. And you also on your platform, you talk about a UBI, which I'm a big fan of.
Yeah.
And so, obviously we could do a UBI here. We could afford it, and not a fortune either. People go, well, then they're not going to work. I mean, if you gave everybody over 18, $1,000 a month, right? I don't care how rich they are or not. Everyone just gets $1,000 a month UBI. Well, I mean, I go out here, $1,000 a month coming into some people's homes would take a lot of edge off, right? That's rent. That's a couple of car payments. That's something.
Groceries,
right? That's helping them, right? And which is, and not that they wouldn't work, but now they got a little help. And then on top of the UBI, I'm a big fan of a $25 minimum wage.
Absolutely.
And it's not that it can't, it's not that it's gonna. My girlfriend and I went to lunch today, right? And we walked into a little sandwich shop that by our house. And, we were paying $7-8 a sandwich before. And now it's like $11 because everyone after the COVID pricing, right? They're closed or whatever. They're trying to make up the money. And then obviously how much food was destroyed during COVID. So the food prices went up to make up for what they destroyed. Right. So I'm already paying more money when I go out. I'm already paying more money for gasoline. Right. So why can't that money be insured to pay $25 an hour? Yeah. I'm already experiencing inflation and those people aren't making $25 an hour. Why can't we, you know what I mean? And also too, the big elephant in the room, is if the McDonald's CEO is making $25 million a year, well, then that's why you're paying minimum wage at a McDonald's, and that's an example because McDonald's is what it is. But how many big corporations have 50, 40, $30 million a year CEOs and a C-level board making that kind of money, 10, 12, 20 million, right? And why don't we just have a cap at 2 million, right? And pay the employees.
Absolutely. I mean, you got these CEOs and you've got these board members and they're making 300 times what their average worker makes. And all the profits come from the workers. There's no kidding the population anymore. Most people know what's up. You know what I mean?
Sure.
We're seeing labor movements all across the nation right now. The media's ignoring it. Nobody wants to talk about it. The people are fed up, especially. So you're not the only one paying extra for a sandwich. And, the That's people at the sandwich shop aren't the only ones who've had to struggle. You know what I'm saying? We're all doing the best we can. And we're not able to ever get ahead. And part of the reason why I wanted to do a UBI is knowing people who are disabled and knowing people that just got forgotten about during the pandemic. Sure. I can't tell you how many wealthy-ish people I know who were like, oh, I got pandemic pay. I didn't know what to do with it. I bought a boat. That was your great plan was getting you know what I'm saying?
Sure.
You didn't think, oh, maybe I could help or do something. And you know what? That's okay. Because socially, we've been saying that that's okay for so long. And now socially, we need to say we all need to do better. And I don't think that that's wrong. I think that it's unfair that people, and how long is it going to take to make sure that people who are on disability and people who are on social benefits are going to get to where we need to be, right? With our stagnant wages and our minimum wage at $7.25. Like, how long is it going to take to get that? So a UBI immediately would alleviate so much stress for people. I don't think it's fair that people who they are forced to live in poverty, basically, if they have a disability. And it's like, that's just cruel and unusual. And then farmers, the life force of a state like Texas, are, foreclosing on their homes and selling their property to developers we need them to stay here,
Right. No, you're right.
So we've got to support our economy, and that's the kind of support our economy needs, not, oh, let's give some more to the oil and gas.
Right. Right. Well, and to your point, I mean, these are some numbers I like to toss around. I mean, you'll hear the big lie about, well, if you raise minimum wage, you're gonna have inflation, right? Well, in Denmark, the minimum wage is $22 an hour. The average Big Mac costs 60 cents more than in the United States, right? So I have no problem paying. Like I said, if I was paying $2-3 more at lunch today, and I knew those people were getting $25 an hour, I'd be more than happy with it. I would pay $12, $15. I don't care. But it's like, but that's the thing, is we don't do that. The store is trying to make up for what they lost, and the producers are trying to make up for what they lost, and the short end of the stick is the employee. But and then they always say, you always hear these finance bros will say things like, well, in New York City they raised the minimum wage, a lot of businesses closed. Yeah, well, if you made it federal, they can't go anywhere. If you made it federal, they can't go anywhere, right? You don't have state income tax in Texas. We raised the minimum wage to $25 an hour. Really? Is Tesla going to leave? Is McDonald's going to leave? No, they're not going to leave. They're not going to leave. Yeah. You're going to leave. Really? Great. And by the way, leave. I'll get a better burger place than you guys, right? So it's like,
we could make better cars and blow up better rockets.
Right? Yeah. And so, but you're right, though. People are fed up. I mean, it's like you look at the media slavishly, drooling over Musk or Bezos, and we gave them each $9 billion of taxpayer money to make those cock rockets.
Doing literally nothing.
Nothing. They flew a rocket around the Earth for 10 minutes. I had this huge discussion with a friend of mine during the playoffs, and he was, well, what does government run better than business? I said, tell me what government runs.
Good point.
Government doesn't run jack or shit. Tell me what government runs. NASA is run better than fucking Bezos. NASA puts shit on Mars, and that annual budget is $25 billion a year. That's a drop in the bucket. It's not even 5% of the defense budget, right?
Defense.
War. I like to call it war. I like to call it blowing black and brown people up and taking their crap for free. Budget. That's what I like to call it.
Yeah, it is colonialism.
Yeah, it's flat out colonialism.
And it's just that's I was talking with some people earlier today, and I was like, as an Indigenous person, it angers me more that our country is known for being the war machine and bringing terror to their, just continuing their white supremacy and colonialism, and it's such a struggle. And this whole trucker convoy thing, that
you're not seeing on the mainstream press at all.
No, but everybody's talking about it.
Right.
And that's the power of word of mouth. Like, what are people interested in? That's what people are going to be talking about. Well, I love that the media is losing control.
Well, that's why they're going after Joe Rogan, right? Because he gets he gets 11 million. I don't care if you like him or not, right?
Yeah.
I agree with maybe half his guests. That's not even the point. The point is, I believe him. Right.
Yeah.
I believe he doesn't have an agenda. Not that he's not, some perfect human being, but he doesn't have an agenda brought to you by Pfizer. He doesn't have an agenda brought to you by Raytheon. Right. Yeah. So when he's talking about, when he has Dr. Robert Malone on, who has 9 patents and developed the mRNA technology, everyone I know that hates Joe Rogan, I go, well, did you listen to the Dr. Peter McCullough interview? Oh, I would never listen to that. I go, oh, you would never listen to that, but you hate him. You sound like an idiot right now. In fact, you sound like a right winger. It's all my little left wing friends, my chewy blue friends, who are cheering on censorship and give me this bullshit. Well, they're a company and they could do what they want. And I did a show on this a few months back. Here's where there's bullshit in that. Okay. These companies, Twitter, Facebook, and everybody, they take money from the government. They have surveillance contracts. They're therefore an arm of the government. They are therefore in violation of First Amendment rights, which means we need to break them up, make them a public utility.
Yeah.
And it's done. And I don't care how fair it is. It's not so fair. But the government will make a payout. We'll buy out Zuckerberg. We'll buy out the Twitter people, and they'll get their money, and then we'll make it a public entity. That's it.
What exactly about their business enterprise is fair in the first place, anyway?
You're 100%. They're selling your information, right?
Without consent.
That's
and
right.
And then only after there were whistleblowers did they start saying, "Oh, we're going to add this little blip into your app." And then, it's like the Spotify thing, the band Eve 6. They signed those contracts before there was live streaming, like before there was streaming of music.
Sure.
And they don't get the millions of dollars. You've got some jackass owns a company. Well, doesn't have an ounce of talent.
And that's the thing is like, and this is where when people scream about censorship, Neil Young, for example, that guy was getting 6,000 views a month. Okay, now I have a show on Spotify. I know what they pay. I'm not making any money on Spotify. But you know what 6,000 views a month gets you? A latte. You get a latte at Starbucks. 6,000 views a month is 0.00038 of a penny. So you'd have to get like 2 million views to make any. That's why Joe Rogan did a licensing deal. And something else that Neil Young doesn't like you to know is that he took $50 million from Blackstone last fall for 50% of his publishing. Right. So he's got all this integrity because he's been paid already $50 million. And now instead of being on Spotify, he's telling you to go to where? Amazon. Because Jeff Bezos is so friendly to the worker, he's telling you get your music from Amazon, and Neil Young's also telling you to get your music from iTunes, because it's not like Apple, has child slave labor in other parts of the world to get lithium, right? Mm-hmm. So that's your Neil Young for you, and I anyway,
that whole debacle just, what I'm saying?
Yeah,
people are the reactionary part of it. You know what I'm saying? Gets people talking about this part. Right. You're not paying attention. And I did hear about him taking, payback from.
Well, last fall, they bought 50% of his publishing for $50 million, which means he still owns half his music rights, which means he could put that music anywhere he wants. He's already multi-millionaire, but that 50 million is not chump change. And so to walk off of Spotify where you're getting 6,000 views a month and it brings in about $20.
It doesn't make any difference.
You're not. Yeah, and he's lying, saying he gets 60% of his income from Spotify, right? But really quick, as we kind of start wrapping up a little bit here, one of the things on your platform, one of the points on your platform, you're looking at criminal justice reform, right? Mm-hmm. Now, the U.S. spends $760 million a day on prisoners and cops. That's what we spend every day. 760 million a day, right? As a country, not Texas. Coming in, because the biggest mistake I think a couple of years back when the BLM thing was really raging was the phrase defund the police, right? Mm-hmm. Because what it did was it implied that we were just going to get rid of cops altogether, and that scares people. But I'm a big fan of redirecting those dollars. For example, why do I need 3 squad cars for a domestic violence call when 1 squad car and a family counselor might do the trick? Why do I need 5 cars rounding up a bunch of homeless people when I might be able to get 2 cars and a couple of counselors? And as a state, we provide, shelter for people, and the people that are not well, because there's a lot of them that aren't well. We're able to house them in a facility of some kind and get them some care, right? But then there's, the other statistic that people love to ignore. They think, they're just crazy and they're lazy and all this stupid crap that you hear. 40% of homeless people have jobs, right? That's something that
they work.
They work.
And they sleep in their car because they can't afford. Because one job does not pay enough.
That's right. So they'll get a gym membership and they'll just shower at the gym and they'll go to work. I mean, the restaurant you go to or the hotel you go to, whatever, 2 or 3 of those people that you see, quote, normal looking, they're probably homeless. Right.
And a lot of homeless people are veterans.
Oh, yeah.
We're supposed to save our troops. We're supposed to support, our veterans. And they're the ones living on the streets that never get to see primary care doctors. Yeah. You know what I'm saying?
100%.
They'll get to take hot baths and get exposed to the elements on a regular basis.
100%.
And a lot of people who are in poverty are children.
That's right.
A lot of children are in poverty, and people don't want to talk about that. And it's just.
Instead, you get poverty porn. I call it poverty porn, right? You got some little girl selling lemonade on the sidewalk for her brain surgery or whatever. You get
heartwarming stories.
Yeah. It's America. This is how great our country is. Look at that, you guys. There's the Girl Scouts are selling Girl Scout cookies for their fellow homeless Girl Scouts. I mean, it's poverty porn, and it's for crunchy reds and chewy blues, which is what I call the both left and the right, because they're just a bunch of corporate knotheads. It's for them to kind of feel better and then sweep it under the rug and forget about it. But but my original question to you is coming in to office, what I mean, you can't, go into everything, but what are some of the steps you would take toward criminal justice reform?
Well, I know another scary word for people is abolition. But here's the thing. These people are studying, and they're not like, these activists are not just talking talk. You know what I'm saying? They're going in, they're doing the research, they're talking to communities, they understand what the needs are. You know what I'm saying? And so we really have to look at this as a community problem. Why do we all have so many prisons and jails in our we're paying for that. We help pay for their development. We help pay for the people who work there. You know what I'm saying?
Sure.
As that's just how it works. Why don't we have anything better? And you know, there again, the profit motive, right? There's a lot of people who are invested heavily in the practice of caging people. Sure. I, for one, think ICE is a waste of money. I don't think that they do anything helpful for us. I think, you know, obviously I want everybody to have a job and be able to pay their bills and things, but that is a complete waste of money.
Absolutely.
And it's demoralizing practice that we should not be sensationalizing all the time. And them, much like our military and I mean, prison industrial complexes are so overfunded that nobody pays attention to, you know what I mean, where all the corruption is. So we have to find a way to start minimizing our population. I think expunging records for drug offenses and things like that is one way. You know, we count these people in our census. Right. People in jail and a lot of people don't know that. And it's like, well, they're part of your community too. You know what I'm saying? Do you feel good about them sleeping? Never, you know what I mean? Like there are these people, like you're just paying for them to be miserable all the time, and there's plenty of worse there. And nobody I know, despite whatever their political beliefs, is somebody who is comfortable with the idea of us making money off of people being miserable. They are comfortable with the idea of being better than somebody.
Right.
But they're not, you know what I mean? When you explain to them what, you know, how political prisoners have been in jail for decades and they're aging, you know what I mean? They're old and sick, and we're still have them locked up for something that's ridiculous. You know what I mean? They don't like that. They doesn't want to talk about that. It makes them feel bad, but it's like, okay, so now let's talk about how we're going to fix it. You know?
Right.
So taking away the profit incentive would be a big step in the right direction.
Yeah, 100%. 100%. You know. Well, and this is where I lost a lot of who I thought were my friends when Biden was running, you know, and I was shocked. I mean, I lost quite a few black and brown friends that would call me a racist because I was going to help Trump get elected, quote unquote, because I wasn't voting for either guy. And I'm like, well, do you know what the crime bill is? And they're like, well, not there. You go back in the past. I go, no, we're living with the crime bill today. Do you know what the crime bill is? And they didn't know what it was. And when you told them that Joe Biden wrote the crime bill and added 53 points worthy of a death penalty, 53. I'm like, what parking tickets? Like, what are you putting on the death? What's a death penalty? I mean, besides murder, like, what's it like? What are you doing? Like, you know, and then how many people? We have 50% of the prison population are non-violent, non-trafficking drug offenders. Their guy got caught with a couple of crack rocks or some joints in his glove box, and he's doing 2 to 5. You know, and you know, it's like I live in Travis County, which is pretty chill because if you get busted with an ounce, it's like old school California in the 70s. You get busted with an ounce, they're okay with it. But you go up to Williamson County. You know, we all going to have a talk with the judge now here. We don't do that up in here in Williamson County because we as Americans up here. And you and your.
Didn't they arrest their own sheriff on a public intoxication?
Yes, they did.
They did, right?
Yes, they did. I love that shit because I'm like going, okay, the sheriff's. I don't know what he was doing. Like, I don't know if he has Willie out. I don't know what he was doing.
Who knows?
Who knows? But it's see, here's the thing, and you know, and I don't want to bring religion into it, you know, because we don't have a lot of time, but. Something I was telling a buddy of mine the other day, right? Because I'm not particularly religious. I don't believe in God really, but people get all hot and bothered when you say that. And I go, listen, you don't believe in God either, because if you did, you would act like it. You believe in gravity more than you believe in God. You know how I know? When you walk down the stairs careful, like you might fall. So you believe in gravity and I believe in gravity, but you don't believe in God like you say you do, because 70% divorce rate, you cheat on your wife, you cheat on your husband, you cheat on your taxes, right? You take a little, you take an extra tomato at the HEB, whatever you do, you don't believe in God. Okay. It's a nice thing to say, but we don't act like we believe in God. I mean, if we believed in God, we wouldn't have 1 million homeless people in this country, right? Like,
exactly.
If we right, we're not
it's
a garden.
social construct.
Yeah.
I don't care what people's beliefs are.
That's fine. I get it.
I think there needs to be a better separation between religion and politics, period. But
100%.
It's that moral superiority complex
Sure.
that is so prevalent in religion and prevalent in these other structures that really cause most of the problems. You know what I'm saying?
That's right.
You shouldn't lose friends over who you're going to vote for. You
shouldn't, but people,
because a friend is somebody that supports you, and a friend is somebody that you trust, and what does that have to do with
no, I've got friends on the right side. I mean, and they're literally, we don't agree on a lot of things, but you know what we don't do? I've known some of these guys 15, 20, 30 years, but you know what we don't do? We don't call each other names, right? It might get heated.
Being an adult.
Right. It's like we get heated, it gets passionate, like, well, no, this is da 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 da. You start tossing out your facts from, whatever.com. But then, what remains is that, they're not insulting my tie. Right. It's like they're not, well, you're bald. Oh, okay. Because that has everything to do with what? Who you voted for in the last election.
And then they lost the argument.
Absolutely. As soon as someone personally insults me, I'm like, oh, you lost. It's over now.
It's a win.
It's a win. Thank you. As soon as you start calling me names, you lost. You lost your argument. Right. And I don't care. I don't care what facility I have with logic or rhetoric. You lost your argument. Right. It's done. But so, really quick, I'm going to put your website, DelilahForTexas.com, on the show notes. But what are you doing over the next handful of months here? Are you doing events? What are you going to be doing in the next little bit of time here? When can people come shake your hand and press the flesh and all that stuff? Kiss the babies. What?
Right. So I'm actually going. So we're having our nomination conventions and this spring, and so it's in March. And I'm going to try to come to some of those. We are also, I'm going to be in Washington for a healthcare rally, a women's healthcare rally, March 8th. So we'll try to live stream that or put it on Facebook. And then, we're going to try and hit up the college campuses and just talk to young people about, what they're passionate about and how, there's a general strike planned for May that we're also trying to talk to a lot of people about, because I've been working with these folks for about a year or so, just sharing platforms, things like that.
Sure.
And I think we're starting to see some really good progress on the labor movement. So we're going to be trying to talk to people about that. So through spring and summer, we're going to be trying to heavily campaign around Texas. Okay. But I got 3 kids and I work full time. So
I was going to say, like,
I'm doing the best I can.
Yeah. I've had Sima Hernandez on a few times.
Oh, good.
When she ran for Senate, in 18, then she ran again in 20. And they really wanted to make sure she wasn't going to get it this time, because they ran like 13 people, and they were digging corpses. They were digging like corpses out of the guys I never even heard of. One guy was a congressman in like 1981 or something. They dragged his ass out, and it was like, he's like 90 or something. It was just, and then they had these, I hate to say fake Latina, because they're Latina, but there was this one chick that was running. She didn't even speak Spanish, but she's going on the whole Hernandez and all this kind of crap. Kind of going, dude, really? Like, it's like, whatever, right? But they were trying to confuse the market, and then I went to a few things with her, and her people, and they purposefully weren't talking to her. The media purposefully was not talking to her.
Absolutely,
because
if you try to take against you're a non-pro corporate stance, you're already labeled. Like, you're already gonna get blackballed. We went to a mermaid festival. And we did not show up, and we paid to be in the parade and everything, just to talk to people. And we were not in any of their media at all. And I was just like, okay, you know what I mean? And that was just one example of how, what I mean?
Yeah.
People are trying very hard to ignore us.
Yeah. Well, you screwed you screwed the corporate narrative. You screwed with the corporate narrative. And it's not a paranoia thing. I mean, it's a fact that Bill Clinton signed the Communications Act in 1996. It's a fact that precluded the communications industry from antitrust legislation. So whereas before one company could only own up to maybe 2 media properties, Then it became unlimited, right?
Mm-hmm.
And this is why we have 5 companies now that own everything. Yes. And they own what you see. They own, they own everything. And so it's like, it's not for debate. It's a fact. So and you don't need this grand conspiracy with a bunch of guys with cigars in the background going, yeah, see, we're going to do it just like this. See, yeah. All you need is a couple of people acting in the interest of your peer group. Right. And then you're going to, if they get their way, that means you get your way and everyone's happy. That's why
that's another reason why making internet a public utility would be a benefit to most
100%.
And I don't think that people make the connection often, but that's a really important thing that we still have time to do.
100%. 100%. You're absolutely right. Well, Delilah, let me let you do your day. I know you have a real life and a family and everything, so we'll get you out of here. But folks, my guest has been Delilah. I can't talk today. Delilah Barrios, and she's running for governor, state of Texas, for the Green Party. And sometimes I get a little gas. You do too much Texas stuff. Well, it's supposed to extrapolate to your everyday life. So quit bitching at me. Okay. Thank you. Bittertruth.info. We appreciate help with the show. Like us on YouTube, subscribe. And if this stuff makes you uncomfortable, it's supposed to. Sleep tight.